Right now is the safest time in history to buy Bitcoin and the most dangerous time to follow traditional financial advice. I know that sounds insane, but if you actually look at the risks, it's true. You see, Harvard will teach you about 15th century trade routes before they'll teach you about Bitcoin, and that's not an accident. The system is designed to teach you the past, not the future. Universities, traditional finance experts, mainstream media, they're all in the same game. They're teaching you what worked yesterday. They're not equipped to show you what's coming next. And that may have been fine in 1950 or maybe even 1990. But today, in 2025, in a world moving at the speed of AI, technology, and monetary revolutions happening faster than ever, if you sit around waiting for the experts to give you permission to move forward, you're gonna get left behind. And if you follow the old school playbook, you won't just get old school results, you might get completely wrecked. So in this video, we're going to talk about why this is actually the least risky time ever to embrace Bitcoin, and why what was traditionally known as the safe path today is actually the most dangerous one. We're going to get into it in just a second. And first, real quick, my name is John from My Favorite Thing About Bitcoin. Been studying Bitcoin for several years, created this channel with the goal of helping other people better understand and grow their conviction in Bitcoin. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, hit the subscribe button and we'll get into the video. So it used to be pretty obvious what the safe path to take in life looked like. Go to college, get a good job, invest using the 60-40 portfolio, 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds, pick broad-based index funds, retire at age 67, collect your pension and or Social Security, and live happily ever after. That was the formula. But the thing that all younger generations seem to feel today, but don't know quite how to articulate properly, is that that formula is broken. Because the world has completely changed. And it's changing so fast that before you can even catch up with it, it's already changed again and again and again. You'd think that if you stuck to the old school playbook, you might still have a chance at old school success, but the pace of change is accelerating so fast that what you're more likely to get is completely and totally left behind. Think about it. What happened to businesses that didn't adapt to the internet, that didn't have a website? What happened to companies that didn't go mobile? What happened to a retailer that didn't embrace e-commerce or still doesn't offer online delivery? They get crushed by their competitors and die. And right now, we're living through similar but more dramatic shifts with AI and with Bitcoin, with money itself. Because if you're still waiting for your financial advisor to tell you it's time to pay attention, you're already falling behind. If you're still trusting the same people who told you to buy bonds in 2020, you're walking into traffic with your eyes closed. The safe path is not safe anymore. If you follow traditional financial advice, you're signing up for failure. We see this with higher education and younger generations who believe the promise that college was their ticket to upward mobility. Instead, they're saddled with debt that keeps them a wage slave to a job that can't even keep up with the cost of living. The problem with universities in 2025 is they don't teach the future, they teach the past. That's not me just being cynical. That's just literally how the system works. Universities are great for teaching universal truths. So math, physics, maybe some philosophy if you're feeling fancy. They're also great at teaching you pre-existing knowledge. The history of science, the history of economics, maybe the history of money, but a lot of people still don't seem to learn that. But the thing they cannot teach you is the future. Because by the time something new makes it into a curriculum, gets through committee, gets printed into a textbook, and gets handed to a professor, it's already old news. Don't get me wrong, universities can be great for learning foundational knowledge. Engineering, computer science, math, in many disciplines, of course, you're going to need that foundational groundwork to be able to build on top of it. But when it comes to adapting to the world we're living in today and the future, you're completely on your own. Think about it. When the mobile wave hit, was your best bet to go enroll in a 4-year college degree program to learn how to build a mobile app? Or by the time you graduated, would the App Store already have been on version 7 of the new reality? When e-commerce started to explode, should you have signed up for a bachelor's program on dropshipping logistics? Or by the time your diploma showed up in the mail, would Shopify have already minted thousands of new millionaires, and would you have already been left behind? As the creator economy started booming, do the universities, even today, have any clue how to teach you how to succeed on YouTube or become an influencer? There's definitely no TikTok virality major, no how to build an audience from zero curriculum. I'm not saying you have to want to be an influencer. I'm saying the point is when a wave hits, you either adapt now or you sit through 4 years of lectures about something that was hot 5 years ago. And Bitcoin is the perfect example. Take Michael Saylor's story about when Harvard Business School finally came around to him in 2021 to do a case study on MicroStrategy's Bitcoin treasury strategy. By the time they wrote the case study about what MicroStrategy had done in 2020, it was already completely outdated. And after they put it out, 2 years later, they came back to him and said, hey, can we teach the case study again? And Saylor said, sure, are you going to update it? And they said, no, we're going to teach the same exact one. At that point, 3 to 4 years outdated. At that point, what value does it have about educating you about the future? It's just a history lesson. And we know today that Bitcoin treasury companies are all the rage right now in 2025. But think about it. Michael Saylor started that strategy 5 years ago. That's how long it took corporations and other traditional finance types to get with it. So Saylor got a 5-year head start before basically anyone tried copying him. And the ones who are starting now are still considered to be on the cutting edge. Most other companies beyond them have not even started considering it yet. That's why if you're waiting for Harvard to teach you about Bitcoin or AI or how to navigate the next wave of innovation, you're toast. By the time these institutions catch up, the opportunities are long gone. And that's partly why we have a situation that none of these universities are going to want to admit. The value of a degree is collapsing. Like I said before, do I think there's no value at all in studying foundational concepts like math and physics and economics? Of course, I'm not saying that. But the overpriced credentialed institutions don't even offer credentials for many of the things that actually matter today. As far as I know, you can't take a Harvard business class called Bitcoin, How to Front Run Wall Street Before Your Grandpa Figures It Out. So when this is the case, what happens? Well, you get the decentralization of education. Suddenly, as I'm sure you've seen, everybody's selling you a course. Not me, at least, though. And of course, some of those courses are good. Some of that knowledge can be amazing. Some of it's garbage. But that's the game now because the official gatekeepers are way behind and checked out. They're still charging hundreds of thousands of dollars and handing out credentials for a world that barely exists. And that's why credentialism is dying. No startup founder asks to see your diploma. No investor asks for your GPA. No customer asks where you went to school before they buy your product. In this new economy, nobody cares about the letters after your name. They care about whether you can adapt and whether you can execute, whether you can spot change before it happens, and whether you're brave enough to act when the experts are still asleep at the wheel. I've thought about this with me too, personally, by the way. What are my credentials? What officially qualifies me to be on here talking about Bitcoin? Nothing, bitch. It doesn't matter. That's the world we're living in. Fire up a YouTube channel for free and start talking. If you've done the work and you know what you're talking about, the audience will notice. That's it. And then you too, just like me, can get 400 views and maybe make $6. But that brings me back to why today is the best risk-adjusted time in history to embrace and buy Bitcoin. For most of its history, Bitcoin was just a crazy bet. It was too risky. It was too volatile. The government's going to ban it. It's just for criminals. You can't use it to buy anything. And to be fair, some of those fears made a lot more sense in 2013. It was much easier to believe that Bitcoin would have some fatal flaw, that hackers would wipe out exchanges overnight, or that governments would try to shut it down, which they can't even if they try, but a lot of people used to think they would try. But if you look around in 2025, especially in the US, the regulatory risk is almost completely gone. That used to be probably the number one piece of FUD about Bitcoin. Government's never going to let it succeed. They're going to shut it down. Well, governments couldn't ban it if they tried, but the US clearly is not banning Bitcoin. They've completely embraced it. ETF approval, repeal of SAB 121, executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and on and on and on. Now, BlackRock's in, Fidelity's in, even JP Morgan has embraced it, despite Jamie Dimon flooding Bitcoin in the news every chance he gets. He's doing partnerships with Coinbase. Coinbase, which by the way is now in the S&P 500, with MicroStrategy probably likely to follow soon. Countries have made Bitcoin legal tender and more companies are adding it to their corporate treasuries every day. The custody risks are dramatically lower. Back in the day, one hacked exchange could ruin lives. We all remember Mt. Gox. But today, there are more regulated, insured custodians and easy self-custody wallets than ever. Liquidity risk? Basically completely gone. Early Bitcoin markets were thin. One whale trade could swing the price by 20%. Today, deep liquidity on major exchanges and ETF inflows keep the market healthy. Case in point, we just saw 80,000 Bitcoin sold in 1 week, and the max drawdown it caused was from like 118K to 114K, which compared to a decade ago is completely insane. Adoption risk, getting crushed. For years, Critics said Bitcoin can't be money, it won't scale, no one will ever use it. Today, we have multiple functioning layer 2 networks handling thousands of instant, low-fee transactions per second. We have merchant adoption spiking. Square is rolling out Bitcoin payments across all its point-of-sale systems. PayPal just enabled Bitcoin payments for every US merchant. These are allowing thousands of businesses to integrate Bitcoin directly. What about reputation risk? It's completely flipped. It's not magic internet drug money anymore. It's now in pension funds, corporate balance sheets, and even nation state reserves. So all of this to say, the risks are lower than they've ever been. And the biggest kicker is that the upside potential is still massive. Bitcoin has not hit full adoption, not even close. If you want to understand how early we really are, watch this video right here. But suffice it to say that Bitcoin still represents less than 0.3% of all global wealth. That's less than a $3 trillion market cap out of $1 quadrillion of global wealth. So you have this unbelievably rare setup where most of the historical risks are almost completely gone and most of the upside is still intact. Usually, when an investment gets safer, it loses some of its explosive upside. But Bitcoin in 2025 is the opposite. It's never been safer and it's still early. So what you don't want to do is be one of those people who gets stuck here waiting for the so-called experts to give you permission, waiting for the government to say, okay, it's time, waiting for Harvard to launch a Bitcoin MBA class, waiting for your financial advisor to say, okay, we can shift a little bit into Bitcoin. That's not how innovation works. By the time the institutions sign off on a new technology, most of the opportunity is already going to be gone. That's not just for Bitcoin, that goes for almost everything. In the 1990s, universities weren't going to teach you how to build a website or an internet business. In the 2010s, they didn't teach you how to become a YouTuber or an e-commerce founder. And today, they're not teaching you how to capitalize on AI or Bitcoin because the institutions move slow and innovation moves fast. So if you're still sitting around waiting for the old guard to tell you now it's safe, you're gonna miss it. You'll buy Bitcoin when it's already $1 million a coin, and you'll learn how to use AI when it's already replaced half the jobs. You'll follow the safe path right into irrelevance. The people who get left behind aren't the ones who take too much risk. They're the ones who wait too long to take any. So the bottom line, right now, Bitcoin is safer than it's ever been, and traditional advice is riskier than it's ever been. You can follow the old school playbook, go to school, get your degree, trust the system, 60-40 bond portfolio, maybe retire at 67, but you're betting your entire life on the idea that the next 50 years will be the same as the last 50. And if you believe that, you're not paying any attention, and the future is sprinting past you. So here's the choice. Stick to the old script, hope it works out, or start learning the stuff the institutions are not going to teach you. Bitcoin, AI, innovation, the stuff that's actually moving the world forward. If you're still watching this video, you're probably one of the people who gets it. So do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, share the video with someone who needs to hear it so we can build the future we want before the experts catch up. And like I said, if you really want to understand how early we truly are to Bitcoin, watch this video right here because you want to make sure you never forget Bitcoin is inevitable.